My name is Captain Eva Hall, 35 years old, third deployment just finished. Iraq again. The same dust, the same relentless heat, the same body bags zipped shut in silence. But this time, something deep in my gut told me, don't tell anyone you're coming home. So I didn't. No text, no call, no filtered photo with a flag and a caption about returning. I packed my ruck, handed in my rifle, and boarded a flight back to American soil. 22 hours later, I landed without a single word to anyone. By the time my boots touched the sidewalk outside my grandparents' house in Masonville, Virginia, the sun was dropping low behind the oak trees, casting long shadows that felt heavier than they should. The porch light was off. That was the first sign something was wrong. The second came when no one answered the door. I still had my key, the same brass one Grandpa gave me when I turned 13. If you ever need to get inside, he had said, this will always work. And it did. The lock turned and I stepped into a silence so thick it pressed against my chest. The house didn't smell dirty or spoiled. It smelled empty, hollow, like no one had truly lived inside it for too long. "Grandma?" I called out. Nothing. I checked the living room first. Everything was perfectly in place. The blanket folded, the remote aligned like it had been measured. Then the kitchen, then the back door where her garden boots still sat, then the master bedroom. That's where I found her. She lay in the hospital bed we had set up 2 years ago after her stroke. The same blue sheets, the same floral pillowcase, but now there were machines, quiet machines, cold machines. Oxygen hissed in slow, steady pulses. A monitor blinked a dull green rhythm. Her hands lay limp at her sides. One eye was half open, like she was caught somewhere between waking and letting go. No nurse, no aide, no family. Just her, the machines, and me. I stood there for 5 full minutes before I could move. My stomach felt heavy, like it was filled with sand and steel and memories I didn't want to touch. I checked her IV, wiped the corner of her mouth, adjusted the blanket around her shoulders. "It's me, Grandma. Eva's home." She didn't move. I looked around the room. No cards, no water glass, no flowers. Just silence sitting in every corner. That's when I reached for my phone. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there was an explanation. There wasn't. No messages from my mother, no voicemails from my father. Just one fresh post, time-stamped an hour ago. Sunsets in Cabo never get old. No regrets, retired life, finally free. A picture of my parents on a beach, drinks in hand, smiling like they didn't have a mother lying in a bed 1 breath away from the end. And something inside me changed. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't being busy. This was abandonment. I walked down the hallway past the old photo of Grandpa in his Navy uniform. His eyes seemed to follow me, steady and unyielding. His safe was still in the study, locked, just like always. People used to think it held valuables, gold, secrets, but only he and I knew what was really inside. He told me once, the day I got my commission, if something happens to me or her and they don't show up, open it. You'll know what to do. They, my parents. I knelt down, entered the code, my service number. The safe opened without hesitation, like it had been waiting for this exact moment. Inside was a thick envelope, my name written in his sharp, all-caps handwriting. Eva. I opened it slowly. 4 sheets of paper, 3 typed, 1 handwritten. The typed ones were official, heavy stock, notarized, dated 2 years ago. Last will and testament of James Henry Hall. The words were precise, cold, final. If my son and daughter-in-law are not physically present within 12 hours of either my or my wife's incapacitation or passing, they forfeit all inheritance rights. 12 hours.
Grandma had been on life support for 3 days. I confirmed it later. In such event, all property is to be transferred to my granddaughter, Captain Eva Hall, the only person in this family to uphold the values of honor, duty, and presence. Presence. That word stayed with me. Not love, not loyalty. Presence. Because showing up matters more than anything you can say. I stared at the page for a long time, not shocked, not surprised, just understanding. He saw it coming. He knew they wouldn't be there. The last page was handwritten, just for me. If you're reading this, they failed. Don't feel guilty, don't argue, don't negotiate, just execute. They chose the beach, you chose the bedside. That's all that matters. At the bottom, a name. Gregory Thorne, his number taped under the desk drawer. I stood up, walked to the desk, and found it exactly where he said it would be. I called. He answered on the second ring. "Captain Hall," he said calmly, "I was wondering when you'd call." "It's time," I told him. "Good," he replied. "I'll initiate everything immediately. Your presence is enough." I hung up and sat in Grandpa's study, still in uniform, still covered in travel dust, and waited. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, the hospital called my mother. 15 minutes after that, my phone lit up. Call after call. I didn't answer. I watched the sunlight crawl across the wall. I listened to the slow rhythm of Grandma's breathing. 2 hours later, I checked my phone. Hundreds of missed calls. My parents, their lawyer, my brother. Funny how quickly people remember family when money is involved. Because when people think they're in control, they stop showing up. But the moment that control slips away, they panic. The next morning, I made coffee in Grandma's kitchen. Everything felt the same. The kettle, the cabinets, the smell. For a moment, I almost believed she'd walk in, humming softly. But the machines were still there. And my parents were still far away. By 10 a.m., I met Gregory at the hospital. He walked me through everything, the will, the authority, the process. It was airtight. At 11:32, I signed the hospice authorization. No more machines, just peace. I held her hand as everything quieted. "I'm here," I whispered. At 12:14 p.m., she passed. 10 seconds later, my phone rang. I answered once. "What did you do?" my mother demanded. "She's gone," I said. "You had no right. You weren't here." I ended the call. By afternoon, the house was legally mine. Everything transferred without noise, without conflict. Because real power doesn't shout, it just signs. They arrived the next day, confident, angry, too late. They walked in like nothing had changed. But everything had. We argued, briefly, coldly. I showed them the will, the video, the truth. They left without apology. The court case came weeks later. Claims of manipulation, pressure, lies. Gregory handled it. The video played in court. Grandpa's voice steady, clear. Eva is the only one who showed up. The judge ruled quickly. Case dismissed. I walked out without looking back. I stayed in the house for a while after that, not forever, just long enough to finish what needed finishing. I cleaned, donated, sat in silence that no longer felt empty. Then one day I found a box. Inside was Grandpa's burial flag, folded perfectly, with a note. "Give this to someone who remembers." So I did. I left it with a man who had served beside him. Back at the house, I found one of my old drawings, a child's promise written in uneven letters. "I will protect you when you get old, Grandpa." And I realized I had kept that promise, even if it meant standing alone. Because silence doesn't mean defeat, it means the argument is over, and the truth is the only thing left standing. The inheritance wasn't massive, just land, a house, a few accounts. But I used it. I built something with it. The Hall Foundation, a place for veterans who had no one. Care, support, dignity, no questions asked. People came, quietly. They sat, talked, remembered, and in every story, in every silence, there was one thing that mattered more than anything else: presence. One of them, Harold, a 91-year-old Navy radio tech, broke down in tears when I told him we'd cover his rent and send a nurse twice a week. He held my hand and whispered, "I thought I was done being remembered." The local paper did a story on us. Front page: Granddaughter turns betrayal into brotherhood. The Hall Foundation serves forgotten veterans. My mother sent me a screenshot of it. No words, just a red question mark. I didn't respond because there was nothing to say. They had their chance to show up, and they didn't. A year later, we held our first Memorial Day event. Not the big one with flags and speeches and parades. Ours was different. A quiet ceremony in the backyard of the old Hall home. 37 folding chairs, a table with name cards. One empty chair up front with Grandpa's photo, and a single bronze star on a velvet square. I stood up to speak, told the truth about war, about absence, about how legacy isn't what you pass down in your will, it's who shows up when nobody's watching. I read the last words Grandpa ever wrote to me. In the end, don't fight for applause. Fight for the ones who aren't in the room to clap. When the ceremony ended, a man walked up to me in full dress blues. Late 30s, seal insignia, chest full of ribbons. He said, "I served with your cousin, Michael. He told me what your family tried to do." I tensed, ready for a lecture. But the man smiled slow and sure. "Damn proud of you," he said. "Takes guts to walk alone." I still visit the grave every few months. Not out of duty, not even grief really, just to check in. To sit down, breathe in that clean air, and know that no matter how loud the world gets, I once chose the harder path and stayed. Stayed with the woman who raised me, stayed when the rest left, stayed long enough to hold a hand, sign a paper, and carry a legacy that blood alone couldn't earn. Some people inherit money. I inherited purpose, and unlike money, purpose doesn't run out. It grows silently, like honor does. If this story stayed with you, we ask just one thing. Remember her, not for the uniform, not for the fight, but for the silence she held when others shouted over truth. This is Honorline, and we tell stories no one else will. Subscribe if you're still here. It means you were meant to be.